Hey everyone, Alvaro Cortez Jr., aka Lance Danger, here again for another week of The Long Road to Hell. It's going to be a very busy week. I have a lot of things on the plate. I'm going to be making public the podcast that I was recording. The first episode of season 2 of the Serene Chaos podcast. It's going to be the episode where I explain and give more of a context of why I used to do podcasts and why I kind of want to get back into it again as well. So that's pretty exciting. I am going to upload it to Podomatic, where I originally uploaded the first 3 episodes of that season 1, if you want to call it like that. And I'm also, as I mentioned before in the previous video, I'm finally am able to start that writing process now that I kind of put down the names and the situations for the comic of Hell Beneath You. Now that I got all the beats of the story done, all the character names out of the way, I am shaping up the draft. I am kind of having some thoughts about the draft. I'm about halfway through, and I'm wondering if the beginning of this script that I'm writing would be better off if I like split it off into two things, like maybe have those first few pages kind of like a prologue or an issue number 0, um, compared to the rest of the story, because it's very tonally different, those first few pages compared to the rest of the issue. So I'll either cut it out completely or just do it kind of like a prologue kind of thing, maybe an issue 0, kind of like a teaser for, giving people a sense of how this story is going to develop into, in a sense, and maybe put more mystery and intrigue into it. It's a lot to think about. And again, I want to be very careful with this story. On one hand, I don't want to overthink things, and on the other, I don't want to stall either. So I'm going to have to come up with a decision pretty soon about that. I'm sure I'm going to come up with a decision pretty fast for that. I'm also considering sending the script to a few friends and colleagues just to kind of get their opinion on the story as well, at least for the prologue and maybe for issue 1. If I'm already calling it a prologue, so I think my heart is set on maybe making the opening of issue 1 as a prologue instead of having it be part of issue number 1, since it's a pretty big contrast, those first few pages, compared to the rest of the issue. So I'm leaning a little more into having it be its own separate little story that I could either post online, or maybe I can give it away for free at my local comic book shop or something like that, or have like a free digital download at Indie Planet, or the website also is another option. The internet really is a game changer. It really does help kind of balance out the battlefield in a way. In terms of competing with the bigger comics, you have so many options compared to when I first started doing indie comic and zines. It's just a wonderful time to be making indie comics, really. Anyway, I'm going to have to go back to work on some stuff, so I'm gonna catch you guys later throughout the week. So I just uploaded one of the comparison strips to Patreon of Nevermind the Pepperoni. It's based on an experience that a former girlfriend of mine and I went through in Puerto Rico. It was one of the most bizarre things, and just kind of like showing you the comparison of how the art looks between before and now. And this was a weird one because this one actually kind of made me angry when it happened to me. Um, it was this homeless person that was on the street, and my former partner and I had finished visiting her cousin at her place, and we had ordered some pizzas. We were watching some movies, having a cool time, and there was one extra box of pizza left over, and she told us to just take it with us. So we're walking to the car, and we see this poor person, you know, just laying there sitting down on the street. And my ex was the one that saw him first, and she was like, "Oh no, he looks so hungry. Like, I'm probably not going to eat the rest of the pizza anyway later on. Like, would you mind if we just give it to him?" And I didn't mind at all. Like, I just went over to him, like, just like how it happened in the strip. Like, there was no exaggeration, there was nothing added or taken away. What you see is what you get with this strip. I offered the guy the pizza. At first, he was very happy and grateful, but then he literally asked what kind of pizza it was. And when I said it was a plain cheese pizza, like, he was like, "Oh, no pepperoni?" I'm like, no. And he literally gives the box back to me saying, "Oh no, I don't want it. I already had pizza before." And his stomach is literally growling as he's giving me the box back. Crazy times. Like, I absolutely love a comment on the original strip when I posted it on Drunk Duck, now known as the Duck Webcomics. One commenter wrote, "I guess beggars can be choosers as well." That actually could have been a pretty good title for the strip as well. Beggars can be choosers. I did change the name because, as I explained in the free Patreon post, I didn't want to be overly mean with the title Pizza Putts. It had been a couple of years since that incident had happened, and between that incident and the strip when I did it. But I guess I was still feeling kind of mad about it, and I just felt like Pizza Putts is kind of mean spirited in a way, so I just changed it to never mind the pepperoni and the reimagining or remake, what have you. So yeah, that crazy things, right? You can't make this stuff up, man. So this is the start of week 3 of my physical therapy. It's a drizzly, overcast day. I absolutely love this mural. The building that's in front of it has another mural as well. Anyway, I am exhausted. This has been really trying sessions. Like, it really has been challenging me a lot physically. I'm definitely up for the challenge, but my body is definitely not what it was before. After I got COVID. That's the other mural on the other building in front of it. I've always loved those murals. So I have a lot more range and reach now with my shoulders, which is a good thing. I've been getting less tired when I work at my desk and such, so that's also good news. Anyway, I will keep you guys posted. Big news, guys. I finally decided what I was going to do with the script. I was kind of thinking about splitting the draft that I was doing between two drafts actually. The first few pages being some kind of prologue or kind of a teaser for the rest of the series, and of course issue one be its own thing. And I think it's for the better. Like in the beginning of the video, I think I was already kind of leaning towards doing it kind of more of like a prologue because it's so tonally different, that opening scene compared to the rest of the story in that issue. So I decided to divide it into two separate stories in that sense. So I am showing you this binder. Of course it had to be from The Office as well. It's actually holographic. If you move it around, they kind of bob their heads like bob-headed dolls. And just like a whole lot of different like Easter eggs from throughout the series. Hey, Mr. Scott, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Make our dreams come true. That is the one episode that is so hard to get through. Anyway, Hell Beneath You, number 0, first draft, Runaway. And I kept it in tune with the same theme of having Linkin Park titles as song titles as titles to each issue. So for this short story that's going to be spinned off as a prologue, I decided to use a different Linkin Park song as well, so it can't be consistent with the rest. Now I'm just kind of going to like flash through it. I can't show too much because I want you guys to be surprised once it gets out there. But we've got to this point, guys. I actually wrote the first draft of the first story for Hell Beneath You, and truth be told, I feel a little emotional that I've gotten to this point where at least I can start moving forward at a bit of a quicker pace compared to originally. It's because of these shoulder injuries and whatnot. So hopefully I'll be able to knock out those first drafts, and based on those drafts, then I will start doing as well the whole visual and design aspect of the story as well. Like for me, it's a lot easier to design characters and settings after I have an idea of the story itself and what a scene will require me to draw as well. So I am very much a writer first in that sense. Like I really do need to kind of have that guide for me to draw upon. No pun intended. So yeah, exciting times. I finished that first draft of the first story of Hell Beneath You, which is going to be the prologue, aka issue number 0. As always, I'll go adjusting accordingly as I keep writing to keep things consistent and nice and tight. So this is exciting. This is a huge step forward. I'm going to keep working on the issue 1 story now. It's going to feel like a much more balanced issue, I think, now that I decided to separate that opening scene and spin it into its own little prologue side story. My goal is to have each issue be 22 pages, kind of like the traditional comic book page numbering. Nowadays, it's anywhere between 18 and 20, which is kind of a shame because I'm used to like that whole 22 to 32 pages from back in the day. But You can't ask for much nowadays, I guess. Like, part of me is wondering if it would be better to probably make it 20 pages myself, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But for this particular story, I'm likely going to keep it at a nice little 12-page story, since it's just the prologue and is just going to kind of give a small teaser into how this world is going to be of King's Kills. Exciting times. Alright, so it's pretty much the end of the day, and I'm just like going over how the premiere of my second season of my podcast did on Podomatic, and it's been insane. Actually, it actually ended up being the most played podcast out of all the podcasts that I have uploaded, which is mind blowing. And I really am shocked at the support that's been getting. Podomatic, the great thing about it is that aside from hosting the audio podcast, you can also use them to submit it to other sites like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and such, and other podcast. I almost said webcomics, podcast hosting sites, and it's mind blowing. Like, I remember a time where it was so complicated to try and upload your podcast to Apple, and now I can just do it with a click of a button through Podomatic. It's mind blowing how times change and how technology keeps evolving and how much easier things start to get as technology keeps progressing. I almost don't know what to say. I just want to say thank you to everyone that listened to the episode and that downloaded it as well. It was one of my most downloaded episodes as well. And it actually shot up into the top 10 most listened visual arts podcast in the visual arts category in Podomatic. It's just insane. I really did not expect that it would get this much support, especially since I haven't been promoting it too much. Like, people were aware, and as days went by, I noticed that all the older episodes were actually getting new listens and new downloads as well. Like, by the time that this episode came out, the original episodes had almost doubled their original plays and downloads, which is, again, mind-blowing and very humbling. Again, thank you all so much for giving me this kind of support. I am working hard to make this a much better podcast than I originally made. Since I was very new into podcasting back then, and since I didn't have the things that I have now that makes podcasting a little easier, especially recording audio. Hopefully I'll be able to do a much more entertaining and informational content for you guys. It's certainly been fun recording these new episodes and kind of listening back and forth between the originals and the new ones. This first episode is not like a remake of the original three. This one is kind of like a bridge. I just kind of wanted to give context and a backstory of how I got into podcasting, like how I discovered podcasts and the ones that I listened to, and how that also inspired me to make my own podcast, because I have my own things to say as well. So once again, thank you everyone so much. Once again, the name of the podcast is Serene Chaos Podcast, and you can find it on Podomatic, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, like I'm blanking out on the others because this is just kind of mind blowing to an extent. And I'm also uploading the audio version along with an image to YouTube as well. And of course, on Patreon, I'm releasing it about a week or two earlier than the actual release date on Podomatic and on the other podcast sites. So for as little as $1, you can listen to everything firsthand and also get a lot of other goodies as well on my Patreon. And if not, there's a lot of free content there anyway. So I believe I have mentioned it before. So it's www.patreon.com/Lance Danger. Once again, thank you, and I'm going to try to work a little bit more on that script. If I look and sound like a mess right now, our eldest cat, Fiona, who you have all met by now, she passed away this morning. She was starting to get a little bit sick again. We had made the appointment to take her to animal hospital today. And she just didn't make it through the night. She was in bed with us, with the other cat, Puchito. She had cuddled at my feet like she usually does when we would all go to bed, and I'm sorry. So it's officially hoodie weather for me over here. Like whenever it dips into like the mid 40s, that's when I stop going with the t-shirt and go with a hoodie as well. I just finished my third week of, I think it's third, it's either the third or fourth, I lost count, but I think it's the third week. I'm almost halfway there. Today killed me. The good news is that I pretty much already regained my range of motion on both shoulders back to normal. Now we're doing a lot of weight training to get muscle back in there. So today was extremely exhausting. I have not lifted weights in almost 2 years when the whole shutdown started. And then of course early in the year was when I hurt my shoulder again and I got COVID. So yeah, it was a really crazy day today at physical therapy. I almost didn't go because of what I said yesterday. The eldest cat, Fiona, passed away yesterday morning. But at least when she passed away, she was in bed with my girlfriend, the other cat, and myself. Like, she cuddled up to my foot like she usually did when she was getting comfy to sleep, and that was the last thing she did, was cuddle up to me. So yeah, I'm still going through that. I probably will for a long while anyway, but I have to try to keep pushing forward, you know? So I worked a little bit on the first issue, first draft of Hell Beneath You. To be honest, I haven't been able to concentrate very well since Thursday. So I decided to give it a small break for today, maybe for the weekend, and start working on Funny Bone Rage of the Lucky 13, part 4. I just actually finished putting together the PDF that I'm going to be uploading to Patreon. I was thinking about maybe uploading it tomorrow, but I'm going to hold it off until Monday just to start the week off with a bang, really. And as you can see, here is the cover that I did. This is featuring one of the Lucky 13. Her name is Lolita Letal, and she plays with daggers. And I just thought, just for fun, I would include some of the old promos that I did back in the day in 2011, I think it was. Yeah, 2011. And there it is, Rage of the Lucky 13. It's actually been a lot of fun to be able to do these. Now that I'm on chapter 4, that means I'm only going to be 2 chapters away from finally putting out the entire Rage of the Lucky 13 storyline. It's divided into, each chapter is divided into small acts. Chapter 4, and they all kind of start off where the previous one left off, of course. So, this is Act 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and a little bit of recommended reading where it's not necessary to read Fred Peterson, the Mighty Warlord, or Alfred Gomez's Clown Rogue Assassin. I tried to write it in a way that people that are not familiar with the characters can jump in and start learning about them and not feel lost because of them having been appearing in other comics as well. So hopefully I've been able to do that properly, to be able to introduce these characters to a newer public that probably isn't familiar with them, but at the same time keep it at a minimum so that the people that are familiar with them appreciate the refresher, but it doesn't become something that repeats itself too much. In every chapter, I started off with random quotes. Some of them are actual quotes. Other are quotes that I just make up. And some of them are just fun facts. They seem random at first, but at some point throughout the story, it actually ties in a way. So it's not as random as you would think, or at least as I would lead you to believe at first. So this was a bit of a fun little distraction. Just kind of showing. There you have it. Part 4 of Funny Bone. That's going to be going up on Monday. By the time that this video goes up, of course, hopefully people would have read it and enjoyed it. As I mentioned before with the podcast a couple of videos back, I think it was, I'm losing track and sense of time. This is part of the perks if you're subscribed to my Patreon for, at the very least, $1. You can download all of the Funny Bone stories that have been uploaded so far, and of course future Funny Bone stories as well. and not to mention all the other comics and exclusive stuff that I'm going to be putting on Patreon. So I'm really kind of giving a bigger push towards the end of this year, kind of like rebranding it to an extent and putting much more content into it, especially since I had to take such a long time not posting anything between the pandemic and my former day job and getting sick myself as well. This has been a pretty crazy year. It's been a crazy week. But, you have to keep putting stuff out there, because if not, what is it all for? What can I say? It's been a roller coaster week. Um, it started off very exciting, the week. Like a lot of things happening, a lot of cool things happening. Um, and again, throughout the week, being able to finally actually start writing Hell Beneath You, being able to accomplish doing that prologue, deciding on actually doing it as a prologue that's part of the story, and officially making the return on my podcast also, and also receiving like the support that it did and that it continues to have actually. A lot of people are actually excited for when episode 2 comes out as well. It's difficult losing someone. And I know like some people are like, well, pets are, yes, pets, but I was raised with pets growing up also. Like there was always a dog or a hamster or fish. So I'm not like no stranger to having animals as companions. And I think I mentioned it before, like especially dogs and cats seem to view me as a big pillow or something. Like I would say 90% of dogs and cats usually approach me, and even if they're shy, they'll eventually approach me uh, quicker than with anyone else, really. Like that was the case with these two cats as well, especially Fiona. Like the first time I met that cat was in the beginning stages of dating my girlfriend. And it's funny because the first time I saw the cat, she was the first one to approach me. And she actually rubbed up on me and she meowed at me. And I just pet her head, like, okay, cool. And then she kept looking at me and meowing again. So I pet her again. And she purred, but again, she would like keep looking at me and meowing. And my girlfriend's mom, rest in peace, like she says, no, she has a very particular way of being liked to be pet. She likes to be pet in one stroke from head to tail. And I was like, oh, okay. And I did just that. And of course, she like started purring even louder, and she like looked at me and meowed again, and I pet her that same way again. And as soon as I'm taking my hand away, she actually got on her hind paws and grabbed my hand with her two front paws and meowed again. And at that point, my girlfriend's mother was like telling me straight up, oh, you're fucked now. That cat owns you now. And I'm like, okay. So we kind of had like a bond from the very first time we met somehow. Crazy how things turn out to be. Like with Cheeto, the other cat, he was the more shy of the two cats. And even then, like by the second time that he saw me, he actually jumped next to me when we were sitting at the sofa just talking and watching TV, and everyone was shocked to see him do that because he never really did that with strangers, but he took a liking to me very quickly as well. So, and especially since Thursday, he's been really attached to me. Pets are family. At least I've always considered it that way. And whenever one passes away, it's almost like a family member passing away. And if anyone ever comes to you and just say, like, get over it, it's just an animal, aren't we all? Mourn those that you need to mourn. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about that. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that has that connection with that creature. You're the one that has all those experiences and those memories. So, on that note, I think I'm just going to end the video for this week today. I don't even want to say like the whole flawless victory thing. I'll just throw it in there, I guess, now that I said it. Because there were so many things that happened towards the end of the week like that. So she probably would have wanted me to say it anyway, that it was a flawless victory. Maybe a strong victory, because I'm not gonna lie, there were times I didn't want to record or write or anything. But I also have an obligation to myself to see these things through, and even in my darkest moments, art has always been there for me in one way or another, in some shape or form. So this is me creating out of everything that's still happening and not letting it stop me, because if I stop now, I don't think I'm ever going to pick it up again. So as much as I've said it probably since the beginning of this video series, there's nothing left to do but keep pushing forward for yourself and for the people around you. And yes, that includes your pets as well. So if you have a dog, if you have a cat, a hamster, a gerbil, a guinea pig, whatever, not a fish, really, because I'm just, going to say to you, just give them a big hug right now and be grateful that they're still with you. Like, I'm grateful that Puchito is still here with us. He's 13 years old and he acts like a 5-year-old cat. I won't say to go hug a fish if that's what you have as a pet, but you can tap at the glass, I guess, for its attention to let it know, like, hey, buddy, I got you. The same way that our pets has us, I guess, has our backs unconditionally. So that's going to be the end of week 6, I believe. Hopefully, it won't be more downers like this, but I want to be transparent and like literally show what happens when you decide to do these kinds of things, because sometimes it's easy to say that someone lost their passion or just ran out of energy trying to do their comic. It's just comics. But to many of us, it's not just comics, and to many of us, it's not just that we drained out because we couldn't cut it. When we say life gets in the way, sometimes it literally does, and in the most unexpected ways, also. So, anyway, thank you for watching. I will keep pushing forward, and hopefully next week I'll be able to have 1 or 2 drafts done for Hell Beneath You. I'm thinking of maybe starting to do some designs once I get to the draft for issue 4, which is, halfway through the story. My shoulders are starting to feel a lot better. Excuse me. I am also considering trying to sketch with my left hand, but that'll be a story for another video, I guess. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching and for all the support you've given me. I hope you all have a great week, and if you're a creative, then as I say in my podcast when I sign off, stay creative. And also, real quick, I just decided that I wanted to just kind of end on a note, showing off this video that I had posted on TikTok a few weeks ago, of Fiona editing my stuff, and yes,